welcome, and welcome, Nick. Good to see you. I should tell you a bit about what the Deal Mindfulness group is. If you're not aware, are you aware of mindfulness at all? You know a bit about mindfulness. So you know it's all about being in the present moment, being in the now, not worrying about the past because the past is gone, not worrying about the future because the future hasn't happened. Now is the only moment that we have to enjoy our lives. And what we do here at the group is we practice a few exercises just to help with our own mindful practice, and I do a bit of talking on a theme, exploring an area of mindfulness. And if people have any questions or any comments or anything that they want to chip in, they're welcome to just, shout out as we go along. It's all very informal and relaxed. Yeah, it's very random. It's all in the moment. Everything's conducted very much in the moment. And the format previously would be that we do one exercise at the beginning. It was all a bit more formal. We did an exercise at the beginning, and then I did the talky bit, and then we did another exercise at the end, which was fine and it was good. And then last week I thought, well, I'll mix it up a little bit, and rather than do it that way with two bookending the session with these two exercises, and then I'll drop in a few little exercises as we go along. And it seemed to be quite well received. So we'll do the same again this week, I think, because it worked quite well. So yes, we'll do that. And the topic for this week is sound. Why did I come up with sound? I suppose sound is something that certainly interests me. Sound is something which is very integral to some of the exercises that we do. I also found quite an interesting quote around sound, which we can talk about, which should be interesting. So, to begin with, let's begin with. We'll do the little arm moving exercise, because that was quite nice and that helped to focus people. So for this little exercise to begin with, what we do is we start with our arms just slightly out in front of us. And as we breathe in, we just bring the arms together until the hands touch or the fingers touch. And then we breathe out and bring the arms back down again. And that's all we do. So we just repeat that several times. And in your own time, you can begin. So we breathe in.
I've got a mantra to go with that. Somebody says, breathe the new in and the old out.
Okay, well then you can say that in your head as you go along.
Yeah, breathe the new in.
So we breathe in, bring the hands together. Breathe out, and bring the arms back down again. And just follow each individual breath as it happens. So just following the breath and following the movement of your arms. Being aware of the fact that you have arms that move. Being aware of how it feels to move them, how it feels to bring them together. Being aware of them touching. That's it. Following the individual breaths as they happen, in and out. Allowing yourself to just be. Good. When you're ready, you can let your arms relax, let your eyes open. So one of the exercises that we've done fairly regularly is we've engaged our senses, because the information that we get from our senses tells us where we are in space and time, what's going on around us. And I personally find that, I mean, when we do the sitting exercise, we obviously work our way through the senses and we finish with sound and listening. And I find that, for me, it's one of the easier elements to be able to focus on and to be able to keep in my awareness and keep me in the moment. What do other people think? Is it the same for those that have done it? So what is it about sound that enables us to do that? Well, sound is quite different to the other phenomena that our senses pick up. Unlike vision, what we can see, sound travels around corners. We can't see around corners. You know, we can hear what's going on behind us. We can't see what's going on behind us. We can smell what's coming from behind, but it's not quite so directional. We certainly can't taste anything other than what's in here. In terms of what we can feel, again, we're possibly quite limited to you know, it being in contact with our skin in terms of what we can feel physically. So sound's quite unique in that sense, and also the distance that sound covers. You know, we can hear, whilst we can see a long way, certainly, and but it's directional. Sound can travel from miles and miles and miles and miles, possibly even further than we can see. We can hear particularly very loud sounds travel for huge amounts of distance. Something else that's quite particular about sound, certainly from a sensory point of view, is the fact that it's linear, it's constant. You know, if you think about vision, which is you know, hearing and vision are the two main senses for us as human beings. But vision, we can cope with snapshots. You know, if you think about movies, films, 24 frames a second. Animation, they do it in 24 frames a second. So lots and lots of still images, but the way we perceive it is just one constant thing. Our brain fills in the gaps. So we don't have to have a constant, there doesn't need to be that constant stream. But you can't do that with sound. You couldn't do that with sound. If they tried to do that with sound at the cinema and just played you 24 snapshots a second, you'd notice, and you wouldn't be able. It would be difficult to listen to. You'd miss a lot of. Your brain can't fill in the gaps. Your brain cannot fill in the frequencies in between. It has to be linear. It has to be constant. Like the present moment. The present moment is always there. It's always constant. It isn't 24 frames. It's not 24 snapshots in a second or more or less. It's constant. It's like, I talked before about the record player, the spiral, constant spiral. And the needle is always in contact with the record as it works its way in, and that's the present moment. And that, you know, there's an equivalent there. Records generate sound, and it's about vibration. So sound's an excellent way of getting into the present moment, because it's always there, it's always linear. Sound can be very distracting as well. You know, we talk about wanting peace and quiet. Sometimes when we feel overwhelmed by a situation, it's often because it's loud. If something is very busy, you know, if you walk into an area where there's lots of people and there's lots going off, if you close your eyes, they disappear, but the sound continues, and that's what can be overwhelming.
Sometimes your mind's busy though,
well,
yes. Out in your mind.
That's true, yeah, that's true. But I often equate that to, it's kind of like a noise, an internal noise, isn't it?
It's
that constant thing. It's like an internal noise. Yeah. And it's difficult to shut it off as well. So certainly the internal noise is difficult to shut off. That's one of the benefits of practicing mindfulness, because that helps you to try and learn to shut off the sound. But also shutting out sound is very difficult. You know, if you close your eyes, that's gone. You know, I can't see a thing. But if I do that, I can still hear, certainly I can hear the sound of my voice, because that's kind of internal. But you know, if the cars were coming past, I'd still be able to hear them. It's very, very difficult to completely shut it off. So it's very powerful. And sound, you know, going back to what I was saying before about the senses, sound can have a very physical effect on us. We can feel sound. You know, I've been to many a rock concert in my time. You feel it there when the loud music is pumping. You know, you feel the bass coming up through your feet. You feel the vibration in your chest. You know, when I used to squeak the bowl, and people's fillings start rattling. You feel it. It envelops you, which is something that the other things that our senses perceive don't really do in the same way. You can't feel enveloped by what you can see. You don't feel enveloped by a smell. So before I go on any further, let's do another little mindful exercise, and we should listen. This is an opportune moment to just listen. So if you'd like to, you may close your eyes or keep them open. It's entirely up to you. And just begin to listen. Again, it's that constant line. Always something to hear. And you just accept the sound into your awareness, moment by moment, and allow it to happen. And if your mind wanders, that's fine. If that internal noise starts up, that's okay. Just acknowledge it and then just move your awareness back to listening to the external noise and accepting it. Gradually extending the field of your hearing wider and wider. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So as we've just practice their sound or bringing our awareness to sound is a really effective way of getting into the moment. Because it's always there, there's always that line of it, and we can move our awareness to it, it can bring us to the moment. But going back to something that I touched on before about, when we're feeling overwhelmed, often it's because we're in a noisy situation. And sound can be very invasive. We've often, we crave peace and quiet sometimes, but sound can invade. Anybody ever had noisy neighbours? Not long ago, my next door neighbour, he passed away a few months ago, but he was an old fella. Very hard of hearing, could barely see across the room. But he liked his television, big television, liked his sport, and he, I think because he had problems with his legs, he would sleep downstairs in the chair and would wake up at ridiculous times in the night. So he'd wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go, no idea what the time is. I'll put the telly on. Can't hear that. Let's turn it up a bit. So for a period, we had, Sky television, ridiculous volumes, at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then he'd drop off back to sleep again, leave the telly on. And it's very invasive, very difficult to sleep, very difficult to be mindful when people around you are getting irate. And you couldn't tell him. Very difficult. But, so it can be invasive. When you've got diggers going off outside and men digging up the road, trying to have a bit, maybe you're trying to watch your television or have a bit of quiet time. It's difficult. And the kids are running around screaming. And you can't hear yourself think. I've never ever been able to hear myself think. Why do I say that? I've never been able to hear myself think. Sometimes I can smell it. It can be invasive, which is all the more reason to practice being mindful, so that you can accept it. Because that's what a lot of mindfulness is, isn't it? It's just about accepting the present moment. If what the present moment is offering is pleasant and enjoyable, then you can enjoy it, and that's great. If the present moment is offering you something which is a little bit more challenging, then you can embrace the challenge and get what you can from it, and learn what you can from it. But when the present moment is offering you something uncomfortable, noisy, overwhelming, unpleasant, you can get cross and upset about it. Doesn't do you any good. Gets you cross and upset and wound up and frustrated, gives you a headache, tension in the neck, makes you feel a bit dicky in the old tummy, and before you know it, you're at the doctor's asking for some sleeping tablets and some antidepressants. Or you can just accept. Learn to accept, because there's always another moment. My next door neighbour, bless him, yes, he had the telly on, but the telly isn't on now. So let's do another little exercise now. Let's turn our awareness to what we can feel. So again, if you want to close your eyes, you may close your eyes. And just be aware of your head on the top of your shoulders, resting on your neck. And be aware of the force of gravity pulling down through your head, down through your spine, down through to your bottom. Be aware of the weight of your bottom pressing into the seat. Be aware of those shoulders, and again the weights of gravity on your arms and on your shoulders, and that downward movement. Be aware of any tension that's being held in the neck and the shoulders. And as you become aware of it, allow it to release out slightly. Allow gravity to pull it down through the arms and out. Become aware of the fact that you have legs. And on the end of your legs are feet which are in contact with the floor. Just become aware of your body as a whole, and how you're positioned and how you're holding it. Your head, down through your neck, your shoulders, your arms, down to through your elbows and your wrists, to your hands and your fingertips. And aware of your chest, down to the pelvis and hips, the bottom, groin. Down through the legs, through the knees, down to the ankles and the feet. Just effectively moving your awareness down through your whole body and then back up again. Become aware of the fact that you're wearing clothes. There is something against your skin, your arms, and your chest, and your legs. And then become aware of the faint movement of air. On your face and on your neck, maybe on your hands. Very faint, but it's there. If you want to, you can just allow a hand to move and feel the air moving over your hand. Good. When you're ready, you may open your eyes again. Now, moving on. I found a little, well, I didn't find the quotes. It was one of those things where somebody had posted something on Facebook. And normally I'm not one for that. People post all those positive messages on Facebook. And I just think, I don't like that much. But it's just not me. It's not something that I particularly do. But somebody had posted this, and I thought it was appropriate given what I was thinking about talking about this evening. And it was a quote from the Dalai Lama, and he said, "When you talk, you are only repeating what you already know. But when you listen, you may learn something new." When you talk, you're only repeating what you already know. But when you listen, you may learn something new. And I agree with the Dalai Lama in the majority there, certainly. You know, there are people that, I'm sure there are people that we all know who like the sound of their own voice.
Not all people who always listen to what you say. If you say something and I say, it's quite frustrating. You didn't listen to what I said. It's quite frustrating.
It is frustrating when people don't listen.
Yeah, very.
You know, sometimes I think, what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point of me saying anything if nobody's listening?
I keep telling my household, that's it, I'm giving up, I'm not talking anymore.
You just need a little whiteboard. But it's true, there are people that just talk. There are people that don't like silence. They just can't understand it. There's that little bit of silence. They have to fill it with something. Or they like to pretend that they're knowledgeable and worldly wise and have important things to say, so they just throw it all out there. And I think that's what the Dalai Lama was particularly aiming that at. You know, those people that just talk for the sake of it. But it's true, if you're talking, you can only regurgitate what's coming from in here. But if you listen, there's always something new to hear, whether it's something that's being said to you or just a sound from nature that you maybe have never heard before. However, and this is, I suppose this came from me doing this group. Doing this group? No, I don't like that. It's not me doing this group. It's us taking part of this group and me standing up here and talking about things. But if we talk mindfully, is there an opportunity there to learn something? And I would suggest that yes, there is. I think I have learned things from standing up here and making it up as I go along. It's not just all stuff that's already in here. Some of it, I think the present moment does give me a present now and again, offers me a gift of insight now and again. There are things that come out through talking which weren't there to begin with, formulated as I speak. So I think that whilst I agree with what the Dalai Lama is saying, I would not want to be the one that disagrees with the Dalai Lama. No, I'm not so arrogant as to think that I can take a stand against the great wisdom of the Dalai Lama. However, I think if we bring mindfulness to it, if we talk mindfully, then we can learn. Because, as we know, or hopefully as we're beginning to realise and know, is that talking is obviously a key component of the way we communicate with other people. And communication is as much about listening as it is talking. And if we're mindful when we are communicating, then we don't just regurgitate and have verbal diarrhea and steamroller, whoever it is on the receiving end of this great outpouring. If we're mindful, then we are aware of the people that we are, the people that we are talking to.
Sometimes if I'm nervous, I think about it when comes out.
Nerves does do that.
Yeah.
Definitely it does. And that's another reason to be mindful, because then we can be aware of our nervousness. And breathe through it, exactly. But when we're mindful, we can respond as well. We can respond when somebody else has something to say. We can allow that to happen, allow that to become part of what is the discourse. So there is an opportunity to learn in whatever we are doing. Whether we are talking, whether we are laying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning listening to our next door neighbour's rubbish television, whether we are at work, whether we are sat behind the wheel of our car, whether we are walking to the shop to buy milk or a newspaper, whatever it is we are doing, if we are being mindful in that moment, there is an opportunity to learn something. And particularly if we listen, if we open up all of our senses and allow ourselves to absorb the present moment. I think that's what it is, isn't it? It's about absorbing the present moment, whether that's through listening or through what we can see, what we can hear, smell, taste. There you go, see, I hadn't thought of that before. That came from there. Absorbing the present moment by being mindful. Okay. Right, let's breathe. Because the breath, as well as being able to hear, And that being an incredible way to bring us to the present moment. And it must be terrible to lose your hearing, I think. It must be terrible. I think I would hate that more than possibly losing my sight. I think I personally would feel very isolated if I couldn't hear. It must be incredibly lonely. Hopefully, touch wood, won't happen. But the breath is the other great way, as well as being able to tune into what we can hear, and that being connecting us with a wider area and connecting us with a great volume of space. Our breath does the same thing, because again, our breath is an internal function. It's something that happens within us. It's a system that keeps us alive. It's something that, if we become aware of breathing, then we know that we are alive. We are aware of our own life. But also, the breath comes from the atmosphere, this huge, great area, volume. Connects us with every other living creature, because everything breathes or photosynthesizes and exchanges air in some capacity. And even the fish, the oxygen got into the water somehow, the fish, and then it's all part of that same system. And our breath connects us with that huge system. So let's breathe together and be mindful. So again, if you want to, you may close your eyes. And start by being aware of the breath at the nostrils, the very point where the air enters and leaves the body. And just follow the breath at the nostrils, in and out for the next few moments as it happens. Now be aware of the breath at the back of the throat, behind the soft palate. And again, follow it as it travels up and down with each individual breath as it happens. Now be aware of the breath a little further down in the system, at the top of the chest. Now you can become also aware of the movement of the body, the rise and fall of the chest as it expands and contracts. Now be aware of the breath right down the base of your lungs at the diaphragm. In and out. Now connect the whole system together and become aware of the three component parts. So you breathe in, and you breathe out, and then there is that pause in between breaths. Just be aware of each component, breathing in, breathing out, and then the pause in between. And as Carol said, we breathe in the good stuff. So we breathe in and feel alive. And then as we breathe out the bad and smile at the fact that we're releasing and letting go. Breathe in and feel alive and feel good. Breathe out and release and smile. And then just allow that smile to dissolve and relax into the pause between breaths. And for the next few moments, just follow that process. In the moment, following each part of the breath, breathing in, feeling alive, breathing out and smile. Relax into the pause between breaths, feeling the peace between breaths. And being aware of the sound. When you are ready, you may open your eyes. Thank you very much, everybody.